Tieu Uyen greeted everyone with her familiar, warm, yet somewhat subdued voice. She wished everyone a peaceful and happy day, just as she had always hoped for her own life. The morning air in the countryside was strangely tranquil. The early morning sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the small garden behind Tieu Uyen's simple house. There, rows of lush green cabbage were growing taller each day, carrying the fragile hope of a girl who lived by hard work and resilience. Tieu Uyen bent down to observe each row of vegetables, her eyes revealing simple joy. She told herself that in just over a week, she could harvest them. The cabbage leaves were much greener and taller than yesterday. However, next to the thriving cabbage rows was a patch of empty land, where seeds had been sown repeatedly but still hadn't sprouted. Tieu Uyen sighed, picked up her hoe, and tilled the soil, deciding to sow water spinach again. She didn't dare hope for anything too grand. For Tieu Uyen, simply waking up each morning to see her plants still healthy and thriving was enough. In her small house, Tieu Uyen carefully counted the meager wages she had earned from her previous job at the construction site. Over 300,000 dong, not a large sum, but incredibly precious to her at this moment. She told herself she had to save it as a reserve, spending frugally on upcoming meals. Tieu Uyen understood one thing clearly. She couldn't remain unemployed forever. Life wouldn't allow her to stop, not even for a single day. The thought of finding another job crossed Tieu Uyen's mind. But at the same time, the memory of what happened at the coffee shop the day before made her hesitate. Thinking about returning to that place, she felt embarrassed and flustered. She didn't know how she would explain things if she met the owner again. Things still weren't really settled, and perhaps, for the time being, Tieu Uyen wouldn't be able to go back to work there. In her rambling thoughts, the image of Mr. Tam suddenly appeared. Why did he act that way that day? He had clearly said he was married. A feeling of unease, mixed with confusion, made Tieu Uyen shake her head slightly. She only hoped she would never have to see him again. Currently, the fruits and vegetables were out of season, and there were no produce to harvest, so Tieu Uyen had to leave home to find another job. Staying home like this would only make things worse. At the fairgrounds, Tieu Uyen timidly asked for work. When asked if the work was difficult, she readily agreed. She sat down, carefully observing the people around her making cakes, from tying the strings and folding the leaves, to pouring the rice into the molds. Every movement required meticulousness and patience. Tieu Uyen followed each step carefully, clumsily, but with great effort. For her, as long as she had work, no matter how hard it was worthwhile. The cakes were gradually completed, displaying a variety of colours from natural fruits. Tieu Uyen and the others brought the cakes out to offer to customers. She smiled softly, her voice low but sincere, inviting each person to try a sample. Each time a customer nodded and bought a cake, an indescribable joy welled up inside her. It wasn't just the money, but also the feeling that she was still standing on her own 2 feet in this life. While Tieu Uyen was busy making a living, elsewhere, the atmosphere was completely different. At the company, the CEO sat at his desk, his eyes fixed on the materials report. In just over a week, the quantity of materials had significantly differed from the initial figures. A feeling of unease crept into the CEO's mind. Immediately, the CEO called Mr. Hoang to his office for a discussion. Mr. Hoang, with a hesitant expression, admitted that he had also noticed the discrepancy. He hadn't been able to contact Mr. Tam during his visits to the warehouse. Mr. Tam was frequently absent during physical inventory checks. Even so, because Mr. Tam was someone the boss trusted, Mr. Hoang hadn't dared to report it directly, only silently monitoring the situation. The CEO listened thoughtfully. In the CEO's memory, Mr. Tam had been a hard-working, diligent, and dedicated person. He had even considered promoting Mr. Tam to a higher position in the company. However, The increasingly obvious signs of wrongdoing made it impossible for the CEO to continue ignoring the situation. The CEO requested that Mr. Hoang compile all data related to Mr. Tam's activities over the past month, from receiving goods to shipping them out of the warehouse. Everything had to be transparent. The story at the company and Uyen's quiet life seemed unrelated. But it was from here that the pieces of destiny began to silently converge. A poor girl living honestly, and a man suspected of dishonesty. All of this was just the beginning of major events about to unfold. As evening fell, Tieu Uyen returned to her small house after a tiring day working at the fair. She passed a roadside pastry stall. The sweet aroma wafted through the air, making her stomach rumble. She paused for a moment, looking at the colourful pastries, then quietly walked away. For Tieu Uyen, at this moment, saving every penny was a necessity. She told herself that tonight, a bowl of noodles with vegetables picked from the garden would be enough. Just as she put the pot of water on the stove, Tieu Uyen heard familiar footsteps in the yard. She was slightly surprised to see him standing there, looking tired but still smiling gently. Tieu Uyen invited him inside, asking him to wait a moment as she was busy cooking. The small kitchen quickly warmed up with the aroma of noodles and green vegetables. He looked around the simple house, placing down a small shelf he had brought with him. It was a spice rack, helping to keep the kitchen tidy. Tieu Uyen felt a little embarrassed that he had spent money on her again, but she still felt his sincere concern. The simple noodle meal was served. The green vegetables were fresh, and the broth was piping hot. He ate and praised the food, jokingly saying it felt like eating at a 5-star restaurant. Tieu Uyen smiled gently, asking about his health because his voice was still hoarse. He said he was still taking medicine and would be fine in a few days. The atmosphere was strangely peaceful, like a rare moment of quiet amidst the hustle and bustle of life. During the meal, he suddenly became pensive. He said that at the company, there was someone he used to trust very much, but recently had made him feel uneasy. Seemingly small things, when pieced together, suggested something was wrong. Tieu Uyen listened, not rushing to judgment. She gently advised him to remain calm and carefully examine everything before drawing conclusions. In her opinion, only when the truth was revealed could things be resolved properly. He nodded, saying he would remember her advice. Meanwhile, at the company, the investigation had entered a tense phase. The CEO requested Mr. Hoang to personally go to the warehouse to check and compare the actual figures with the reports. The discrepancies became increasingly clear. Transactions related to receiving and shipping goods all bore Mr. Tam's signature, but the timing and procedures did not match. Even more concerning was that Mr. Tam was absent on several crucial days, citing leave. Mr. Hoang began receiving calls from suppliers. They complained that Mr. Tam had arbitrarily adjusted contract terms, creating difficulties and putting pressure on them. Some warehouse workers were also upset by Mr. Tam's behavior, but they hadn't dared speak up before because they thought he was a trusted confidant of the boss. All of this left the CEO deeply disappointed. The man he once considered his right-hand man, even planning to promote him to deputy director, was now the center of all suspicion. Elsewhere, Tieu Uyen's past also began to stir. Long returned to his old house, the space empty and suffocating. He called his father, then sat down to listen to the familiar lamentations about debt. His father mentioned that he had once planned to marry Tieu Uyen to Mr. Bin to settle the debt, but she had run away. Since then, the family had been in a desperate situation. Long was angry, believing that Tieu Uyen had someone backing her up, which allowed her to leave like that. Long didn't understand why Mr. Bin suddenly stopped coming to demand payment. He suspected someone had secretly helped Tieu Uyen pay off the debt, which only fueled his resentment. The thought of finding Tieu Uyen and bringing her back to vent his anger gradually formed in Long's mind. His father, though tired, tried to dissuade him, saying that they didn't know where to find her now and that they should let things go. But in Long's eyes, the anger hadn't subsided at all. Returning to Uyen, she was completely unaware that the storms from the past were slowly approaching. She only knew how to try her best each day, going to work, coming home, tending to her small garden, and living frugally. For her, her current peaceful life was the most precious thing. She didn't long for wealth, only for peace, without being hurt again. However, at both ends of her life, dangers were silently lurking. On one side, the truth within the company was about to be exposed, leading to unpredictable consequences. On the other side, her family was in debt and determined to find the girl who had run away. Uyen stood at the center of it all, even though she was unaware of it. The storm hadn't hit yet, but the sky had already changed color. The choices she would make next would determine the fate of each person in this story. No one could remain unaffected. Uyen's story is not yet over. The secrets behind it are still being gradually revealed. If you don't want to miss the next part, subscribe to the channel and follow now to follow along with me to the conclusion of this story.